86. Again I perceived them when they began to strike and swallow each other, and the earth cried out, because the giants became cannibals. They were eating people when people couldn't sustain them. They were trying to feed them, but then they saw people as food. Anyways, then I raised my eyes a second time towards heaven, and saw in a vision that, behold, there came forth from heaven as it were the likeness of white men. One came forth from thence, and three with him. Those three who came forth last seized me by my hand, and raising me up from the generations of the earth, elevated me to a high station. They showed me a lofty tower on the earth, while every hill became diminished. And they said, Remain here until thou perceivest what shall come upon those elephants, camels, and asses, upon the stars, and upon the cows. That means the stars that fell, the fallen angels, the people that followed those stars, the camels and asses, peoples, and elephants, giants, fallen angels, and people. So yeah, that's chapter 86. Sorry. And now go to 87, chapter 87. Then I looked at that one of the four white men who came forth first. He seized the first star which fell from heaven, and binding it hand and foot, he cast it into the valley, a valley narrow, deep, and stupendous, and gloomy. Is that Azazel? See, that's where I wonder, is this Azazel or Lucifer? Then one of them drew his sword and gave it to the elephants, camels, and asses, who began to strike each other, and the whole earth shook on account of them. So this is Gabriel right here. This is Gabriel. Then one of who? One of the four white men who came forth first. Okay? Then one of them, drew his sword and gave it to the elephants and camels and asses, who began to strike each other. And then the whole earth shook on account of them killing each other. Remember Huitzilopochtli and stuff? But that's just a story, I'm sure, with some historic record. But anyways, Gabriel's the one who whispered into these beings and had them kill each other. Pretty much. They offed themselves. But listen to this. And when I looked in the vision, behold, one of those four angels who came forth hurled from heaven, collected together, and took all the great stars whose form partly resembled that of horses, and binding them hand and foot, cast them into the cavities of the earth. The cavities of the earth. And then this is where it gets interesting. I'm not sure how many are aware of this, but just listen. Chapter 88 in the book of Enoch. Verse 1. Then one of those four went to the white cows and taught them a mystery. The mystery was for Lamech and his wife, which conceived Noah. How? He shared with them a mystery. What was the mystery? Well, Lamech and his wife had a baby, but the baby wasn't born. It was a stillborn. But this angel switched. This angel came into the baby, but there was no spirit in this baby, maybe. But I think this this baby was more like a body for this spiritual being. So there was a body that was being prepared by Lamech and his wife for this angel. See? Now, this is what you gotta hear. Then one of those four went to the white cows and taught them a mystery. While the cow was trembling, it was born and became a man and fabricated for himself a large ship. In this he dwelt, and 3 cows dwelt with him in his ship, which covered them. So, while this cow was trembling, it was born. Noah fabricated a ship. And crazy thing about this whole thing, when it's in here, when Noah was born, it says that when Lamech saw Noah open his eyes would literally light up the room. It's in there. There's also the part where when Noah was born, he was singing praises. He also had hair as white as wool. So, let me get to the second verse. Again, I lifted my eyes up towards heaven and saw a lofty roof, and above it were 7 cataracts, which poured forth on a certain village much water. Again, I lifted my eyes towards heaven and saw a lofty roof. Above it were 7 cataracts, which poured forth on a certain village much water. 7 cataracts on a lofty roof. Anyways, again I looked, and behold, there were fountains opened on the earth in that large village. There were fountains opened on the earth in that village. So whatever village they were, something sunk and water exploded, who knows. In that village, water started coming up. And the water began to boil. All the stuff with Atlantis and stuff, somehow the sulfur from it mixed in with everything else and just started to boil. It takes scientists 7 days to petrify wood, and the main ingredient is sulfuric acid. It's been proven. So the water began to boil up and rose over the earth so that the village was not seen, while its whole soil was covered with water. Much water was over it, and darkness and clouds. Then I surveyed the height of this water, and it was elevated above the village. It flowed over the village and stood higher than the earth. Then all the cows which were collected there, while I looked on them, were drowned, swallowed up, and destroyed in the water. But the ship floated above it. All the cows and the elephants and camels and asses were drowned on the earth, and all the cattle, nor could I perceive them, neither were they able to get out, but perished and sunk into the deep. Again I looked in the vision until those cataracts from the lofty roof were removed, and the fountains of the earth began to equalize. So with that, I guess they burned holes through the ceiling of the firmament, and somehow it just got too heavy and just water poured through. And maybe when it got so cold, those holes froze over, and then we just began to adapt or evolve because of the climate we got used to, because it wasn't the old world anymore, it was this new world. So now it's like putting mixing mud in your drink in clear water, and how it gets all murky and then the water starts to settle and everything just kind of chills. The polar ice caps, they're still melting because they were never supposed to be frozen in the first place. It's just the thing we just got used to after all these events. And there's more to this. Just think about the main events and then think about the main events in these visions or dreams. So, yeah. In one of these dreams, it also talks about the Tower of Babel, how after all this, probably the next page, after all this, then they all gathered and started to make this tower. I don't know. Just, if you ever do, just download the app or tell your friend, whatever. It's the Book of Enoch. Yeah. Peace.